Well, hello everyone. Thanks for joining the webinar today. You're in the right place if you've joined today and you're here for the topic of automating your employee onboarding experience to drive engagement and commitment. Certainly a very hot topic in the context of today's hybrid work and the great resignation, the reduced workforce we're experiencing, and of course, the challenge of finding great people. We are very happy to have you here today. If this is your first Habanero webinar, we're welcome. And if you're returning, welcome back. We're really happy to have return visitors today. What we typically do is just a little bit of webinar housekeeping in the beginning. This webinar is going to be about 45 minutes. We will be recording this, so if you find something super compelling that you want to go back to, you can rewatch it later or send it to your colleagues. We're not going to have a question period today, but feel free to enter your questions into the chat in the GoToWebinar software, and we'll make sure we follow up with you on any questions that you have. And then finally, for those that got this invitation through a friend or a colleague, make sure you sign up for our newsletter to get updates about future webinars. So you can go to habaneroconsulting.com to grab those, and we would be love to have you as part of our newsletter list. We don't send a lot of newsletters, but we let you know about great events such as today's. Who am I talking? My name is Brian. I am the Director of Products and Services here at Habanero, and I have been building intranets and digital workplace solutions for over 25 years. I'm really excited about this sort of topic of onboarding. I think it's this next frontier of getting your digital workplace experience in order. Certainly, it's a major part of how people experience their organization, and I'm excited to be here for this topic. I'm joined by my colleagues Elise and Chris, and I'll let them quickly introduce themselves. Elise.
Thanks, Brian. I'm Elise Golanowski. My role at Habanero is Managing Consultant ServiceNow, and I'm super passionate about today's topic. I love automation and impacting the employee experience while seeing some improvements in productivity. So this is right on point for me.
Who doesn't love productivity? Thanks, Elise.
Thank you. I'm Chris Lucier. I'm also a huge fan of automation. My title is ServiceNow Technical Consultant, so I do tend to spend a little bit more time in ServiceNow automation, but I'm also a big fan of just finding problems and solutions, and definitely more focus on the solutions, of course. So yeah, you'll see me in and out of a lot of client engagements around solutioning things out.
Thanks, Chris. For those listening, you might have noticed we have a couple people here from ServiceNow, obviously. If you aren't a ServiceNow company or you're coming from HR and you have some other application you're using, such as Workday, don't worry. We think today's content will be really relevant for you. We are using ServiceNow as that kind of picture of what the ideal or potential future state could look like, but that could be any other platform that you're currently working on. And much of that great onboarding journey anyways starts with thinking about that experience and what you're trying to create, and that technology choice at the end of the day should actually follow that. So you're in good company even if you're not on ServiceNow. A little bit about the format for today. We're going to first talk about what we know about onboarding, certainly hopefully give you some tools or insights that you can share with people that you might need to bring along the journey of why you should be thinking about improving this experience in your organization. We're going to tell the story of Rashad. Rashad is a new employee that has had a terrific onboarding experience, and we're going to dip into the tools and that the organization used to create that experience. And we're also going to be demoing the technology that underpin that experience. And we'll do that by way of storytelling Rashad's journey. And then lastly, as a way of a recap, we're going to step back and recap what we've talked about in terms of the tools. We'd love to help arm you with some of the capabilities out there that can help you pull together your teams to think about what your journey could look like. So this statement, bringing life to work, really is the shortest expression of our commitment to the work that we do with our customers. And this shows up in how we work together, and maybe even more so in what we commit to in terms of the experience we're creating in your client, in our client organizations and the solutions that we build. We are ourselves a great place to work. I imagine we've been in the top great place to work for the last 10 years and one of the top 10 employers in Canada. But I'd imagine if you looked into these organizations that win this award and you looked at their onboarding experience, you'd probably find that companies like ourselves put a lot of time into thinking about these processes and these experiences. And while we don't explicitly share our story in this webinar, we are going to share actually some of the tools that we ourselves used to create our own employee experience. So just a brief before we really get into that future state and what's possible, let's talk about what we know about onboarding right now. I've already mentioned at the beginning some of the things like Great Resignation that are obviously trending and making this a really hot topic. But one of the kind of hidden things that not everyone is noticing as a big change in general is this idea of the shift from assets to people in terms of how organizations run and where they get that competitive advantage. And since COVID, this has been changing over time. There's statistics on this shift from routine jobs to non-routine jobs, and that's been something you can actually track. But since COVID, this has actually, we believe, really been accelerated. So workplaces are becoming more human, and organizations need to think about processes like the onboarding journey as a way of really engaging and connecting to that human experience that everyone really wants to have from the companies that they work for. So we're going to share some stats with you about what we know about onboarding. The information here is available if you want. If you want to send me an email, I can send you the sources for these, but I'll mention who they are. The first one there found that there was 82% better retention due to onboarding based on a report by the Brandon Hall Group. So the onboarding process itself actually had a significant, in their study, relationship to retention. In another report from HCL, 58% of organizations say that their onboarding process is focused on process and paperwork. So it's maybe pretty obvious that processes and paperwork aren't the big things that make a difference. In fact, the best employee onboarding programs are really structured and strategic. But that's a lot of time that hiring managers and other people are spending time just kind of pushing things around in the organization and not adding a ton of value. And then that last stat there, it's a Gallup stat around how many people think that their organization does a good job of onboarding, and you'll notice it's only at 12%. So certainly we feel there's a lot of room for organizations to be able to change and make that onboarding experience better. What's at stake? Certainly, one of the biggest things that we see organizations wanting right now is quicker productivity from people. Gallup in its research says that new hires are actually only 25% productive in their first 30 days, and it takes them up to a year to reach peak performance potential. So there's a stat right there that if we can reduce that time and make people more productive earlier on in their careers in an organization, they'll probably not only add that productivity, but feel like they're more engaged in the organization. The next stat there, that 20% won't recommend their work based on the onboarding experience. This comes from a report by Digitate. This just speaks to how challenging it'll be to get employee referrals or grow your organization and scale the hiring that you need if you have 1 in 5 employees not even willing to recommend you as a great place to work. And then the last one there comes from a report from a company called Vernon. Their study showed that Generation Y employees on average decide to leave or stay with their organization on the first day they work. So there's these critical moments that matter that happen obviously before they get hired and all of those touch points, and also that first day that really are critical in terms of impacting retention in the organization. So what's getting in the way? When we talk to customers, here's what we hear a lot. The first one is time. So this hasn't got a love in the last 2 years. During COVID, onboarding was not a priority, and now all of a sudden it's a priority because people are feeling the pain and they also feel underprepared. Technology has gotten in the way. We are seeing some turf wars with overlapping technology. People may have brought in a technology such as ServiceNow or Workday, and they now need to justify that technology. And so there's competition for which tool you should use when, or there's outdated implementations that just aren't keeping up because they were brought under an old capital project. Vision is lacking in lots of organizations. Unfortunately, this is one we see a lot where there's not a holistic view of onboarding. The thing we often hear is it should be owned by HR, but HR is not taking the lead. And sometimes the service delivery person sees that and they're taking the lead. Sometimes it's the reverse. And that causes departments to take this siloed approach to a fix. And then lastly, many organizations know they could do a better job, but they just don't know where to start. So let's share with you a picture of what a better onboarding experience could look like. And this is a way of showcasing how you can use tools in your organization to bring your onboarding process up to something that's excellent, and also give you a taste of what's already out there in terms of the technology to be able to support you. We're going to use a capability or a tool that we call a day in the life. It's a storytelling tool that is something that you could use to help envision in your organization what that future might look like and help people take the journey with you. And in this conversation, we're going to share, what tools one particular company used in order to create that better onboarding experience. And we're going to start this story with a character called Rashad. So Rashad is a new employee who has just had a fantastic and very memorable onboarding experience. And what do we mean by that? Well, some of the basics, in fact, their laptop was on their desk. And of course, it's not just the laptop, but the laptop or the chair or even knowing which desk was going to be theirs. They felt in control of their onboarding experience. They knew what to expect next, and they had ability to impact that onboarding journey. They got to spend time with their manager. So this is, in our research, something that's very significant in terms of the reason employees don't have a great onboarding experience is because their managers are often too busy to spend time with them. And then lastly, they felt the first week feeling productive. And so they were able to get going in their job and didn't have to wait for things. But at the company that we're referring to, things weren't always this good. So we're going to be sharing the story of the company DelightWorks. And by and large, they are a great company to work for, but their onboarding journey, like probably some of yours, is built on the heroics of the employees that live inside the organization. So specifically for DelightWorks, they lacked putting that time and vision and technology and didn't have that, idea of how to progress in this journey. One of the lenses you could use to think about where they had challenges is that kind of classic people, process, and technology model. So they wish they could spend more time with new employees, but they just didn't have that time, a really important one for people like the hiring manager. Their processes were out of date, so their new employee doesn't have a laptop yet, and you can fill in the blank there on what's missing. It could be a laptop or a desk or a chair, and anything that's really missing on the first day can have an impact on an employee's experience. And then lastly, from a technology standpoint, it just was they weren't leveraging what they had. So hiring managers filling out multiple forms, sometimes with the same information, and having to deal with an onslaught of email because of that. From an employee perspective, we sometimes forget that while employees might see all the good things that are happening around them, there's other parts of the brain that are kicking in. So they might be in their neocortex, that kind of cognitive part of the brain. They might be saying, well, they seem really happy to have me and they're very remorseful I didn't get my laptop on time. So that's okay. But back in that limbic part of the brain, which controls, it's kind of the operating system of the brain, it controls the emotions. What might be going on is more like, but if I don't have a laptop, this is going to be a boring week and I'm not going to be very productive. And I'm not looking forward to this. And then there's an even more instinctive part of the brain, the basal ganglia, which is we call it the reptilian part of the brain. And what they might be thinking is going home and saying, oh my God, they could not get their shit together. I signed my offer letter a month ago. I don't know what's going on. And it's those reptilian parts of the brain that really are ultimately long-term going to impact retention. So our company, DelightWorks, thought there's got to be another way. So I'm going to pass this off to Elise now, who's going to share with you a little bit more of a deeper story of how this company went from not being able to do a good job to changing the way their organization supported the onboarding process. Elise, I think I've just given you control. Are you okay there?
Thanks, Brian. Great question. How did they get there? Today, we're going to talk about how our onboarding hero, Natalie, was able to make some huge changes in the organization to really better support new hires in their experience. So this is Natalie. She is Rashad's hiring and future manager and been one of the main champions for finding opportunities for automation in the hiring process because she's someone that's experienced some of the most pain. Natalie used to spend a lot of time getting ready for new hires like Rashad and trying to prepare them to be more productive on their first day and in their first weeks. And sometimes she felt like the majority of her job was just doing onboarding and offboarding, and she rarely had time to do any other work. This was due to a lot of coordination between HR, IT, facilities, and other departments across the organization. And one little detail slipping through the cracks could very much impact the employee experience. Like Brian mentioned, a missed asset, not having a laptop really hinders their ability to feel part of the organization and get going. And Natalie had had experiences like completing all the forms, thinking she had it all set, and then finding out there was no background check and the hire would be delayed starting, which is obviously not optimal. On average, Natalie had about 75 emails in her inbox related to one new hire, and they'd keep going after that first day. If an employee was a no-show or there was a delay to the start date, like we just talked about, Natalie would have to spend almost half a day rescinding or canceling those onboardings in some situations. So what did she do about it? She started by gathering a bunch of the personas that were involved in the onboarding process. So by mapping that end to end, she found there's a lot of people that touch it. New employees, the hiring manager, HR, IT, facilities, security, and she made sure she understood what their goals were, motivations, concerns, and questions to really try and bring everyone together. And then she brought them together through a design sprint to focus on a problem, and in 5 days, prototype a solution to that problem and test it. And what they came up with was to test using the onboarding and transitions module in ServiceNow to standardize and automate a lot of those functions that were getting lost in translation and taking up so much of Natalie's time. So we're going to jump into a live demo here with Chris.
Thank you, Elise. So I'm going to share with you the Employee Center from Natalie's perspective, and we're going to go through a bit of the onboarding journey, but along the way, I'm going to explain some of the components of the Employee Center that really make it stand out and make it a vital part of Natalie's day-to-day. So up at the top, we have the mega menu, which was a customized component that we were able to add in, and let me just move that tooltip. We can add in HR, IT, and various other elements of your business, and you can target that to specific users and target that content as well to users. In this case, Natalie is a hiring manager who has the ability to do talent management from here. We can go into that for the onboarding, but I'm going to show you another way that that could be done. So we also have components for IT and the various things that you may go through at your organization on a daily basis. Then we have the Content Experiences widget, which is a great way of showcasing targeted campaigns to your overall organization or to specific teams within your organization, however you may see fit. Further down, we have the AI search, so we can search up any of the various content that we have, whether that's knowledge articles or onboarding guides and so on, and we're going to showcase a little bit of that today as well. On the right, we have active items showcasing the active tasks that you can interact with, the requests that you have outstanding, and any surveys that may be coming back to add a greater sense of feedback to your organization to make sure that things are running as you expect, or to offer enhancements that your employees may give back to you. We also have recommended for you. So for the most common things that your users may do each day, you'll see those brought in and shown up as a recommendation for them to interact with very quickly and easily. We have upcoming events, popular topics, quick links, and lastly, applications. All of these things are things that your employees may want to be able to quickly dive into at a moment's notice, and they're all accessible right from the Employee Center. So let's scroll right up to the top here. And although we can interact with our virtual agent on the lower right or the AI search that I mentioned earlier, since Natalie does this all the time, we're going to jump right into the new hire onboarding in the recommended for you section. And we're presented with a very simple form asking all the employees' details, the details about their employment, when they'll start, where they're going to work from. And all of this content is highly customizable. If you want to add in pronouns so that you know how to properly address your employees or how they expect to be addressed, you want to add in a specific mailing address as part of the employment so that you can make sure that they're Equipment is sent to them directly at the right location. You can do all of that. And at the very bottom, we have additional needs for items like work visa, a transfer work visa, or even relocation assistance for those who are moving across the country to come and work at your amazing organization. So let's scroll up to the top and we'll fill in this form really quickly. There we go. That was easy. And let's see if that hiring onboarding process is just as easy. We're going to click submit. And it looks like it's going to take a little while, but within a few seconds, we should have a result of everything that this is doing. And in the background, it's creating documents for signing, HR and IT requests, the related tasks for those requests, and it's sending off notifications so that everybody is aware every step of the way of what needs to be done to ensure that Rashad has the greatest hiring experience that you can imagine. And here we can see the output of that. So we have our new hire information, the hiring manager, when they're going to start, and all of the details of their onboarding process at a high level. And then at the bottom, we have the to-dos and tasks. So I'm going to expand this a little bit so that we can see all of the things that created, because that's going to be really valuable to everybody here, I hope. And it's quite a long list. These are all things that somebody would have had to do manually. And you can imagine that how quickly that is to get lost, how many emails and how much coordination goes into doing something like this. For example, selecting equipment for your new hire. This is a really great one that I really liked when I first saw it. When the time comes and Natalie is given this option to fill in a form, she simply selects the equipment for the user, and right away, as soon as she hits submit, it creates a request. And that request isn't just a notification going to your IT team to say, hey, go get a laptop for my new hire, Rashad. It's literally a request with a bunch of subtasks to say, we need approval for the laptop. We need to order the laptop. We need to install our enterprise image and all the associated software that Rashad is going to need prior to their day one start. This really ensures and brings home that great feeling of when Rashad shows up on that first day, everything's going to be there. All of the checks and balances are in place to make sure that goes exactly as planned. And before we jump back over to additional component of the presentation, I'm going to show you the inverse of that. And we're going to rescind an offer for somebody who took an offer from another employment agency. And we're going to take a look at exactly what goes into that right now. So as you can imagine, it's another one of those processes that can take absolutely forever to do. And we can see that there's some work in progress being done and things ramping up for this employee who's going to be starting in a few weeks. And since we're going to be turning that away, we're going to go up to actions, cancel request, and we're quickly prompted, are we sure we want to cancel? And we do. And again, it's going to take a few seconds, but once it goes through the processes, you're going to see things are canceled or closed as complete or incomplete at the various stages, and the notifications are all going to go out. And that's it at the end. Everybody knows that there was a change in the hiring process for this particular candidate, and they know now to move things back into place, maybe return their assets to inventory or reset the desk for another new hire. And that's it. That's everything there is to do with the onboarding experience from a hiring manager perspective. Let's hear more from Elise about how DelightWorks was able to further improve that process.
Thank you, Chris. So that was awesome. We just saw a few ways that Natalie's job was certainly made easier by getting the right people together, focusing on that problem area, and moving quickly through some prototyping. But there was still some big gaps in the process. And so they decided to bring in this other tool to look at another side of it. This is a journey map, and we can see that they mapped everything from hiring, pre-onboarding to onboarding. And what they ended up finding out was that they had the most opportunity in and around that day one. So they had a low point when the new hire arrived at the office and they weren't sure where to go. They hadn't been given instructions. They felt a little disoriented and not quite that welcoming experience we are hoping to provide. Fortunately, they had a buddy on site, and when they met them, that was a nice highlight. So we want to make sure to keep that support in our process as we move through. Then they got their security card, and it was a nice little moment of delight. They were in the system. It was nice and easy. It felt like they were expected. So that's another thing we want to keep. Unfortunately, when they arrived at their desk, we had hit another low point. Technology hadn't been properly ordered or procured, so our new hire was left kind of sitting there, unable to be productive on their first day. because they didn't have access to a laptop or desktop, they didn't get the access to any of the software or the orientations that were required. So it just kind of created this domino effect of poor experience. They weren't able to log into their teams to have their one-on-one meeting with their manager who is in an office in another province or state. And ultimately, they didn't end up getting to do their IT orientation. So poor experience, they're not feeling very good, and unfortunately weren't able to be very productive in that first day and week. So what did they do to try and fix this? They mapped that alongside a service blueprint so that they could understand what was going on in the backstage. So Natalie worked with the people servicing the experience to understand how they could do better and support better. And that's how they came up with Rashad's new and improved onboarding experience. So a few things changed for Rashad thanks to the team's hard work and Natalie being their hero. When Rashad first arrived at the office, they felt confident where to go. They'd been informed their buddy would be there to meet them. They'd been provided with some floor maps and a little kind of quick direct of where to go to get to security. And they knew that was where their buddy planned to meet them. So they felt a lot more oriented. Their buddy also had been assigned tasks and notified of Rashad's first day, had an Outlook invite to reserve desks and be in the office since there is a hybrid option for these employees. And so we see Rashad and their buddy, they are in the elevator on their way up. Rashad's feeling good, got a security tag. They're still wearing masks at this office. And his buddy has already done some pre-onboarding activities to make sure Rashad feels great at the office. So they've booked a lunch, they've got some tasks assigned, and they're ready to jump in. So the first thing Rashad does when they get to their desk is hop on a call with their manager, Natalie. Fortunately for Rashad, there was their laptop and this was pretty seamless. Their buddy helped them get logged in and they start discussing ways Rashad can start learning more about the company, tasks to complete, and places to poke around. And so Chris is going to show us a few of those spots and moments of delight that Rashad was introduced to.
Thank you, Elise. So Rashad has had their conversation with their manager, Natalie, and Natalie has pointed out, since they were in Teams, maybe have a look at installing the ServiceNow for Teams app. You'll have access to the Employee Center, which we can see right here. So we have the apps list on the left. So Rashad is able to quickly navigate to ServiceNow and hop into the Employee Center. You can even review conversations that you've had with our chatbot, but it's really everything that you came to expect from what I first showed you in our original demo with Natalie and the Employee Center. Well, let's quickly hide the ServiceNow, or sorry, the Teams frame and focus on the tasks that we want to perform in ServiceNow. So Rashad has a few options since the recommended for you doesn't have exactly what they're looking for to order a remote office setup. We're going to turn to the virtual agent to start, just to kind of see if we can get some help there. And there we are, virtual agent. And I'd like to order something. And let's see what it comes back with for a response. Perfect. I do want to request an item. I would like a remote office. Perfect. That first option looks great. We'll have a quick peek. VPN, we're good with that. But let's quickly kind of show you the AI search and how some of that works. We want to order a remote office. Oh, there we go. Wow, perfect. The AI search brought us right to what we wanted. So that's extremely helpful. Let's give a little bit of feedback. Awesome, you're welcome. All right, let's place that request. So here we have another very simple form. We're going to quickly change this to our manager, Natalie. And well, we don't need a mobile device type, but this looks like it's going to cover everything that we need. So let's hit next. Awesome. So we have our monitor, keyboard, mouse, the headset. It's pretty much everything. But you know what? Rashad has an awesome wireless keyboard that they really like to use. So let's take this part out of the order and hit next. So we can see that the keyboard was taken away from the overall order guide, and we have the ability to order everything else in there and save the company a few dollars. Looks like everything we need here. Awesome. The address for Rashad's typical day-to-day office is in there. That's perfect. And let's check out. So while that order gets placed, awesome. And everything here is ready to go. Okay, so Rashad has remembered that they want to place a quick conversation or have a quick conversation with a live agent. Let's see if the virtual agent can help us out with that. Now, we did try earlier and there were no agents available, but that's why we want to try it again right now. So let's start up a conversation. Hey, virtual agent, live agent, great. Let's start there. Excellent. That was really quick and painless. Let's see how well this goes. Great, looks like we're getting a response already. Awesome. So we have a question about a special medical request for our dependent. Let's see if this person can help us out. Sure, that seems reasonable. And you know what, that was really great. I don't have to jump through any hoops. Perfect. That sounds great. So they're actively protecting my privacy, and I got through to an agent super quick. I don't need to jump through a million hoops to get anywhere. This is awesome. So how about we turn things back to Elise and see what else we can find out about.
Thanks, Chris. It's feeling like overall DelightWorks is making some big changes, having the right impact, have standardized a bunch of their processes. And so now they're thinking about what to do next. They don't want to lose this momentum, and they want to continue to build out amazing experiences and improve the employee experience along the way. So what they're using here is a roadmap to get that backlog going that's mapped to their high priority items. And using that roadmap alongside some employee listening and feedback mechanisms, they're able to use some continuous learning for continuous improvements. For Rashad's journey, this means they were requested to complete a quick survey. We saw that Chris pointed that out in the portal, and we'll check out a little more of that in detail once their onboarding tasks are completed. And then they've also been requested to provide some feedback on their other interactions. So in that search, we saw the opportunity to provide feedback on the relevancy. There's opportunities in the knowledge articles to improve the content, rate it, and just keep feeding that into a system for ongoing and continual improvement. And we have Natalie, who's also given a survey at the end of the onboarding experience and continually feeding that engine for continual improvement. And Chris is going to show us what that looks like for providing feedback.
Okay, so here we have the Employee Center. Once again, I'm sure everybody's very familiar with it at this point, but you can see a couple of changes to Natalie's view here. So we have a new task that's shown up. And you may have noticed earlier in the conversation, I showed that one of the surveys showed up for Rashad under surveys, as you might expect. But because this survey in particular is tied to a human resources case, there's an HR task associated to it. And that's why this one shows up under tasks. So let's quickly dive into that and have a look at what we need to fill out. Great. So it looks like a simple survey. Very simple. 2 questions. Was the portal clear on the steps that need to be done? I don't think you can get more clear in filling in a form. That was great. And were all the correct steps in place for you to complete the employee onboarding? Rashad had an amazing experience. Everything was ready. I even had Natalie, well, and I as well, had an amazing experience in onboarding them. So yeah, that was great. And any additional comments that can help us improve? I mean, none from my perspective, but let's just say keep up the great work. And submit. So now they have a little bit of feedback from me on the employee experience, or Natalie rather. So now that we're back on the homepage, we can take a look at some of the other opportunities that we've had to share some of our feedback. So if you recall earlier, we looked into AI search and we got our result right at the very top, which was super helpful, and we were able to provide that, which is great. We also have an opportunity within articles to be able to provide feedback very quickly in a number of ways. So you can leave a star rating of how accurate or how helpful a particular item was to you. If you scroll down to the bottom, we can see most useful, so things that people really found useful in their day-to-day. They can promote that upwards so that we know that these are the most helpful, most important and valuable articles for people to be able to navigate and find the information that they need. This particular one about family medical leave, and of course, this is all very important for when you are having these moments and you need to go through them, very detailed content. So we're gonna give that 5 stars. And we get a thanks. Nice little moment of happiness there. Let's also mark that as helpful because that was really, really, really great for ourselves. And again, just another quick little ability to say thanks and give back. There is also the ability to flag an item, which is completely anonymous, so you have an opportunity for employees to influence the content. And all of this supports continuous improvement throughout the machine learning in ServiceNow for suggested topics and things of that nature. And with that, let's hand things back over to Elise.
Thanks so much, Chris. That was an awesome demo of how employees can provide feedback through onboarding and support continuous improvement. And I'm going to pass it over to Brian to talk about how you can start building forward momentum in your own organizations.
Great, thanks, Elise, and thanks, Chris. I love the demo. I know people listening in today might think like, well, we have Workday for this, or we have an intranet that we might want to do some of that work. That's okay. We of course showcased a lot of the ServiceNow capabilities in there, and certainly ServiceNow has, I think, taken a step back and looked at the process holistically and what might need to happen across lots of different functions in an organization. But certainly integrating with whatever you have as an existing solution is totally possible. So let's just review some of the things we talked about in today's webinar around tools that you could be using in your organization to help you move along. So we talked about the challenges of time, technology, vision, and progress. We're going to give you some recap some of the tools that might help you with each of these in your organization. First of all, we'd love to say that you might want to think of this more not just as a journey to the peak of the mountain of onboarding nirvana, like maybe we showcased today, but that you might actually in your organization have multiple peaks, and think about what are the different summits that you're going to need to traverse in order to get there. So maybe it's just about pulling your content and knowledge together, or you're going to focus on that portal experience. Or maybe the final wonderful destination is that you've pulled it all together into a holistic journey that we've showcased today. The first tools we'd like to talk about are really around those vision tools. So how do you discover your North Star? We find personas and/or archetypes are really great tools for this. Personas are great because they can be very demographic and be something that you could carry on to, for example, different parts of the onboarding process that might differ based on the different demographics you have in your organization. Archetypes are also really interesting and good though for the process of thinking about how you service different types of folks. Archetypes tend to be more focused on how people envision who they are as a person and where they want to go or where they want to be, so they tend to be more future focused. Journey maps are a great way. We showcased a journey map today showing an as-is state, but you can also create a journey map as a to-be state as a way of bringing people along what you want that journey to look like. And certainly tools like today's day in the life where you storytell are really useful. If you have other anchors or problems or challenges that you're trying to get through in your organization, you just don't know how and you feel stuck, some other tools for that. We mentioned the design sprint. That is a sprint process that's based on something that was popularized by Google. It's a 5-day activity to get to the end of something with a very solid deliverable. Other tools could also be that service blueprint we talked about, which is a wonderful way of going beyond just process mapping and thinking about all of those actors that play a role in that service delivery, both in the front of the stage and the back of the stage. And certainly in digging into your technology, making architectural decisions around the platforms and where they are at now and where they should be is certainly that can help lift your anchors. And then if you're just stalled or stuck, we do recommend that something like a product roadmap can be helpful. you could, for example, use your to-be journey map as a product roadmap because it outlines all those places where there's opportunity to improve things. ITIL and its continuous improvement is another process or kind of template to lean into around helping you learn where to go to improve the process. And certainly we do a lot of work with customers on agile planning. So how do I take all the things that we could do, pull it into a list of priorities, constantly prioritize that and make sure that we chip away and keep this journey amazing for employees on an ongoing basis. We showcased today quite a bunch of different technologies that are built into ServiceNow. The tools that come inside of the platform can help you get a leg up or a quick lift on building your onboarding journey. Things like the onboarding template or universal requests, which traverse across multiple functions in your business, or things like the virtual agent topic blocks, which are things that ServiceNow has created to make it easier to answer really common IT or HR questions for employees. Or all these other things can be useful for you to help build that journey. And we'd be happy to walk you through them and showcase them in more detail if you're interested. We're here to help. That's the end of today's webinar, and I'd love to say thank you for everyone for attending today. We're really happy to have you join us and hope to see you again in a future webinar. But we'd also be happy to have you join us in a conversation about what your organization is looking to do inside of onboarding. Again, I'm Brian Edwards. I'm the Director of Products and Services here, and I've been joined by Elise and Chris. And you can feel free to reach out to any of us if you felt any of us said something that has you question something. Thanks again, everyone, and have a wonderful day.